Hello everybody, this is Gareth Cahoon Speaks back here with another video. I'd like you to hit the subscribe bar, give me a thumbs up if you like the video, or hit the notification bell to be notified when I post my next post. Or otherwise you can donate to my ministry and the charities that I support at garethcahoon3@gmail.com on PayPal. This one here is about President Reagan's faith-filled 1984 D-Day speech still resonates today. Look up so you can see God. The United States and many other nations paused over the weekend to remember the 82nd anniversary of the D-Day on June 6th, a heroic day when thousands of men gave their lives to defeat an enemy who sought to enslave the entire world. On the 40th anniversary of the D-Day invasion on June 6, 1984, President Ronald Reagan himself, a World War II veteran, gave a speech on the very spot where Allied soldiers stormed the gates of hell and were victorious. Although Reagan didn't see combat, he did have a front row seat. He was a member of Jack Warner's first motion picture unit for the Army Air Corps. From that vantage point, he saw all the unedited combat footage come from every corner of the world, including footage of the American Army liberating the Nazi death camps at the end of the war. More than 40 years ago, as the leader of the free world, President Reagan addressed World War II veterans and world leaders gathered at the site of the US Ranger Monument at Pointe du Hoc, France. The men of Normandy had faith that what they were doing was right, faith that they fought for all humanity, faith that a just God would grant them mercy on this beachhead or on the next. It was the deep knowledge and prayer, God, we have not lost it, that there is a profound moral difference between the use of force for liberation and the use of force for conquest. You were here to liberate, not to conquer, and so you and those others did not doubt your cause, and you were right not to doubt, Reagan said. Reagan, a man of deep faith in God, pointed to the faith of those who fought, recalling the sacrifice of all Allied soldiers who hit the beaches of Normandy on that fateful day, what it meant for the world then and what it means for all of us now. The Americans who fought here that morning knew word of the invasion was spreading through the darkness back home. They fought or felt in their hearts that they couldn't know, in fact, that in Georgia they were filling the churches at 4 a.m. In Kansas they were kneeling on their porches and praying, and in Philadelphia they were ringing the Liberty Bell, Reagan continued. Something else helped the men of D-Day, their rock-hard belief that Providence would have a great hand in the events that would unfold here, that God was an ally in this great cause. And so, the night before the invasion, when Colonel Wolverton asked his parachute troops to kneel with him in prayer, he told them, do not bow your heads, but look up so you can see God and ask his blessing in what we're about to do. Also that night, General Matthew Ridgway, on his cot, listening in the darkness for the promise God made to Joshua, I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. He finished here in this place where the West held together. Let us make a vow to our dead. Let us show them by our actions that we understand what they died for. Let our actions say to them the words for which Matthew Rigby listened. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. We're here to mark that day in history when the Allied armies joined in battle to reclaim this continent to liberty. For 4 long years, much of Europe has been under a terrible shadow. Free nations had fallen. Jews cried out in the camps. Millions cried out for liberation. Europe was enslaved and the world prayed for its rescue. Here in Normandy, the rescue began. Here, the Allies stood and fought against tyranny in a giant undertaking unparalleled in human history. We stand on a lowly, windswept point on the northern shore of France. The air is soft, but 40 years ago at this moment, the air was dense with smoke and the cries of men, and their air was filled with the crack of rifle fire and the roar of cannon at dawn. On the morning of the 6th of June 1944, 225 Rangers jumped off the British landing craft and ran to the bottom of these cliffs. Their mission was one of the most difficult and daring of the invasion, to climb these sheer and desolate cliffs and take out the enemy's guns. The Allies had been told that some of the mightiest of these guns were here and that they would be trained on the beaches to stop the Allied advance. The Rangers looked up and saw the enemy soldiers at the edge of the cliff shooting down at them, machine guns and throwing grenades, and the Army Rangers began to climb. They shot rope ladders over the face of these cliffs and began to pull themselves up. When one ranger fell, another would take his place. When one rope was cut, a ranger would grab another and begin his climb again. They climbed, shot back, and held their footing. Soon, one by one, the rangers pulled themselves over the top, and in seizing the firm land at the top of these cliffs, they began to seize back the continent of Europe. 225 came here. After 2 days of fighting, only 90 could still bear arms. Behind me is a memorial that symbolises the rangers' daggers that were thrust into the top of these cliffs, and before me are the men who put them there. These are the boys of Ponte Hoc. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. These are the heroes who helped end a war. Gentlemen, I look at you and think of the words of Stephen Spencer's poem. You are men who in you lives fought for lives fought for life, and left the vivid air signed with your honour. I think I know what you may be thinking right now, thinking we were just part of a bigger effort. Everyone was brave that day. Well, everyone was. Do you remember the story of the hill million of the 51st Highlanders? 40 years ago today, British troops were pinned down near a bridge waiting desperately for help. Suddenly, they heard the sound of bagpipes and some thought they were dreaming. Well, they weren't. They looked up and saw Bill Millen with his bagpipes leading the reinforcements and ignoring the smack of the bullets into the ground around him. Lord Lavote was with him. Lord Lovell of Scotland, who calmly announced when he got to the bridge, "Sorry, I'm a few minutes late," as if he had been delayed by a traffic jam, when in truth he's just come from the bloody fighting on Sword Beach, which he and his men had just taken. There was the impossible valour of the Poles, who threw themselves between the enemy and the rest of Europe as the invasion took hold, and the unsurpassed courage of the Canadians, who had already seen the horrors of war on the coast. They knew what awaited them there, but they would not be deterred, and once they hit Juno Beach, they never looked back. Come back for part 2 of this post. Shalom, Maranatha, and Hallelujah.